Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Ann Chu, and I am a part of the New York Ecosystem Service Capstone. Every day, rural landowners in New York State are forced to degrade or eliminate intact ecosystems that have very high ecological value. A reason for this are very limited job markets and one of the highest property tax bases in America. A way to lessen these pressures is by making new income opportunities available to these landowners. How will we do this, and how can we protect these ecosystems? The answer lies in ecosystem services and ecosystem markets. The New York Ecosystem Service Program, or NYES for short, is, oh no.
Don't send it.
Okay. Is designed to assess the feasibility of developing ecosystem markets on private lands. One of our objectives is to increase landowner awareness of emerging and traditional ecosystem service markets and to help them understand how they can generate new income opportunities from these markets. The areas that we'll be focusing on are in the Adirondacks, the Catskills, and the Hudson Valley area. We chose these three areas for our program region because of their very high ecological value. The question is, can private landowners generate income from ecosystem services while conserving the environment? A couple terms really quick. Ecosystem services are benefits to people from resources and processes provided by natural ecosystems, such as clean air, clean water, and climate mitigation. Ecosystem markets are the platforms that bring the buyers and sellers together to create value from these ecosystem services. Our agenda for tonight will explore these four questions. Does the data exist to allow landowners to assess ecosystem service opportunities that their land provides? Are there meaningful certifiable goods and services available? Is there growing demand to make this a viable marketplace? And are landowners willing to participate? Now, landowner participation is crucial to make this program work. So later we will discuss what we can do to help improve and increase landowner participation. The NYES program will build from similar work being carried out in the Chesapeake watershed using LandServer and Baybank. LandServer is an online conservation assessment tool that landowners can use to evaluate the ecosystem service opportunities on their lands. And the Baybank is an online platform that brings the landowners and buyers together to buy and sell carbon credits in the ecosystem markets. These two models are convenient and easy to use. However, they only apply to the Chesapeake Bay area. So what we want to do is to make these models applicable to the New York State landowners in the Adirondacks, the Catskills, and Hudson Valley. And now here is Sonia to discuss if there is enough data available.
Hi, my name is Sonia Kumar, and now I will specifically look at whether there is enough economic, social, and environmental data to see if these environmental markets are feasible. I will first begin looking at some of the challenges faced by landowners. First of all, there are limited financial incentives keeping them from developing their ecologically valuable land and succumbing to monetary pressures. Landowners also have a limited understanding of environmental markets. Many of them don't realize that their property can be used to generate environmental credits that can then be sold without further development on their land. There's also an increase in household costs, and as Anne mentioned earlier, the regions that we are looking at have some of the highest property tax bases in the United States. This map shows a breakdown of levies per household in 2005, and taxes since then haven't changed too much, so this map is applicable. As you can see, in the regions that we are looking at, they have significantly higher tax rates than the rest of New York State. This chart shows a summary of the demographics of the region and of the three areas that we're looking at: the Adirondacks, the Catskills, and the Hudson Valley. The average age is in the early 40s, the average household income is about $48,000, and the average population ranges from 40,000 people to nearly 200,000 people. Now that you know a little bit about who lives in these regions and what challenges they face, I will discuss some of the environmental advantages of these regions. This is a list of environmental benefits that we've found data on and that we think could have the potential to be the basis of these potential environmental markets. We will highlight a few of these benefits throughout the presentation. So one of the main benefits that we found was that there's significant forest cover in these regions. This is a map of forest land ownership in New York State. As you can see, a lot of this land is privately owned. However, it is projected that between 2005 and 2035, the Catskill region may see an increase in population growth and thus potentially a 15 to 30% increase of developed land. If this is true, we will see a reduction of much of this forested landscape. New York is also one of the most heavily forested states in the Northeast. However, 80 years ago, it only contained about half of this area in forest. So the state, as you can see, has benefited from much restoration and now provides a variety of landscapes and ecological amenities, including biological diversity, carbon sequestration, temperature moderation, clean air and water, farms, and other open spaces. In the future, if the NYES program is successful, we can see that these services could have the potential to be very economically beneficial for the region. So this is a map of the Catskill region, and over 500,000 people annually come here to seek escape. Recreation on public lands provides significant economic income to the region through camping, lodging, and other waterfront activities. And this is depicted by the purple and yellow areas of the map. In addition, this region also provides significant water resources and biodiversity, which are largely concentrated on private lands. The orange part of the map outlines conservation easements. Conservation easements are are a permanent legal agreement between landowners and state and local governments. They provide protection to natural resources while limiting or eliminating future development or other undesirable land uses. When an easement is purchased, it results in a variety of tax benefits, and it is recorded in the deed and is binding for future landowners. The Adirondacks is another ecologically valuable region that we looked at. As you can see from the scale on the right, private land and conservation easements has grown significantly in the past 30 years. While permanent protection of all of these private lands is not realistic, continued protection of these lands and providing landowners with the incentive to continue their stewardship is essential for conserving many of these resources. In addition to recreational and aesthetic purposes, these lands also have a lot of ecological functions. These are two maps. One is of agriculture in the area and another is of forestry. And as I mentioned earlier, forestry and also agriculture are largely concentrated on private lands. Sustainable forestry is important to maintain healthy water quality. In general, if a farm uses a lot of inorganic pesticides, they run the risk of these chemicals leaching into local waterways through runoff. To some extent, trees can prevent some of this runoff if there's limited deforestation and development. Forest cover adjacent to and over streams also helps maintain water quality. Riparian vegetation moderates water temperature and helps support the growing flora and fauna of the river. And also, roots of the trees maintain bank stability and also prevent too much sediment erosion from infiltrating the river. These healthy banks also filter contaminants and prevent an influx of pollution from infiltrating. The watersheds in the Catskill, which include the Catskill watershed and the Croton in Delaware, provide clean water to over 9 million people in the region. These water resources, which include aquifers, wetlands, and forested streams, are primarily on private land. This map shows aqueducts and reservoirs in the region that supply the city with clean water. The different colors signify different ownership and also different protection priority of the areas. So the red and purple areas are of highest priority because this is where land protection will have the greatest impact on protecting water quality. The NYES program is an incentive for landowners to maintain their property sustainably in order to preserve water quality, maintain forest cover, and also biodiversity. We have found that there is sufficient data in these regions to support these environmental markets. Now, Amir will guide us through the supply aspect.
Hello everyone, my name is Emir Nahum and I'll be talking about the supply side of the question. Now, first of all, I want to start talking about the supply side with this statement from the USDA Forest Service pamphlet. If it opens, yeah. In 50 years, one tree generates... Let's give it a second. Let's give it a second. All right. Wow. In 50 years, one tree generates approximately $30,000 in oxygen, recycles $35,000 of water, and removes $60,000 of air pollution. Now, I wanted to start with this statement not for you to realize how high the values actually are, but for you to realize that ecosystem services, when viewed from the correct frame, can be valued in monetary terms. Now, ecosystem services are highly complex and interdependent. Maximum compensation from one service requires sophisticated measurements and analysis that for isolating one service from another and for keeping track of a specific service over time, in the changes of the service over time. So the two main markets that we will be focusing on in this presentation are the market for the carbon credits and the market for the wetland credits. Now, first, trees. We all know that trees sequester carbon dioxide through photosynthesis, but the question is how much? Now, first, in order to answer that question, we need to establish some fundamentals, and for that, here is the map of the state of New York. And our project region, the Adirondacks and the Catskills and Delaware region, as well as the Hudson, is, as you can see, has a rating from excellent, ranging from excellent to very good in terms of forest cover, tree cover. And if you look at the land cover type, it's mainly dominated by the forest land cover, the scrub land cover, and if you look at the wetlands, you can see them up in the Adirondacks and in the Catskills and Delaware region. Now, it's safe to say that 73% of the state is actually is forested and the specific species of these trees are actually relevant at this point in the presentation because these figures are one of the key figures, metric tons of CO2 per acre per year. An acre of these species, which are Norway spruce, northeast red pine, northern red oak, eastern hemlock, and red maple. I'm sorry, but this level of detail is necessary because these figures here, the amount of carbon dioxide sequesters, is one of the fundamental figures that we use in calculating the amount of credits that our land generates. So we replicated a hypothetical payment scheme for a symbolic 100 acres for upstate New York, and it looks like something like this. It's just simple algebra. 1 acre, we've just established that 1 acre sequesters 3.2 metric tons of carbon dioxide per year in the previous slide. Also keep in mind that 1 credit is equals to 1 metric tons of carbon, and the trading price for that, according to historical data, is about $10. We've looked at a number of markets in a number of places, and that's what we came up with. And when you multiply the 100 acres, for a hypothetical 100 acres, with 3.2 metric tons an acre, it equates at a selling price of $10 to $3,200 every year. But this value is destined to decrease 10 to 20% depending on the specific market that you're trading on and depending on the specific fees that the market charges you for, like transaction fees. Now I want to switch to wetlands and the wetland credits. Now, the wetland credits were kind of a no-brainer for our project area because our project area covers the Catskills and Delaware watersheds. Now, the approximate size of the Catskills Delaware watersheds is 1,600 square miles. And just so you know, the entire watershed system in upstate New York has an area of 2,000 square miles. So it's safe to say that we're pretty much dealing with the majority of the watersheds. Now, one problem is that only 32% of these watersheds land is actually owned by the state. The rest of the 70% is divided by private landowners. And so it's actually a key to incentivize the conservation of land and these consequently the wetlands through markets to urge private landowners into action in proposing a way that they can make a profit off their backyard. Now, the payment scheme for wetlands credits aren't as straightforward as the carbon credits for a number of reasons. First of all, wetlands aren't as homogeneous in the environment as carbon is in the atmosphere. If your land covers a wetland, it does. If not, then tough luck. So that creates the issue of accessibility as well. And also measurability. The service that the wetlands provide to society isn't as measurable as for example, with the sequestration rate of trees for carbon. So how you measure the value of one credit for wetlands credit depends on the amount of investment your 1 acre requires for functioning healthily and sustainably for future generations. So the value of your credit depends on the initial state of your land when you're first assigning the credit for your land, as well as your individual seller's negotiation skills with the buyer, because for credits for wetlands, the deals are negotiated on a credit basis, since no one credit is equal to the other. So, in general, it's a wide range, but payments for wetland credits can range from anywhere to $3,000 to $600,000. Now, imagine a payment scheme for every ecosystem service that your backyard provides, and imagine that you get compensated for it. Now that could be something. But now I've maintained an assumption throughout my presentation, and that's the assumption that there's a significant demand for every credit that these private landowners provide. And now Elizabeth will give us information about the demand side of the question.
Thank you. Okay, hello everyone, my name is Elizabeth Gracias. I'm going to be talking about who might be interested in buying these credits and why. So I'll be going over potential markets, buyers, and also demand drivers. So we're going to start out with an example using a company like Pfizer, which is located in the Hudson Valley, to illustrate the different kinds of buyer motivations that would drive these kinds of transactions. Pfizer, like most other corporations, is actively strengthening their corporate social responsibility program. This is in large part due to the fact that many consumers and investors are starting to factor in social and environmental and governance issues when making spending and investing decisions. So, according to their 2010 CSR report, Pfizer is committed to environmental sustainability with a focus on climate mitigation and sustaining access to potable water. So the purchase of a wetland credit or a carbon credit would directly help Pfizer meet their CSR goals. Legislative pressures also would drive Pfizer into the market by requiring them to purchase their credits to meet certain caps or limits on the kind of environmental degradation they can have in a particular area. Jumping back to CSR, we believe that there's some additional benefits to ecosystem credits for helping corporations meet their CSR goals, and that's some of the inherent measurability associated with ecosystem credits, as well as the fact that they'd be directly benefiting the community in which they're affecting by investing in the landowners in the area. So this example illustrates the two kinds of markets and their associated buyers and drivers. On the voluntary side, we have mainly industry in the private industry, and those motivations are mostly driven by ethics or business. And then the compliance side, which I mentioned, the legislative pressures, those are mainly driven by regulation and follow a polluter pay model that attempt to account the externalities that are currently not accounted for. So what we wanted to do for our project was to identify a number of sectors on both the voluntary and the compliance side, and the different players within these sectors in our project area that could support these markets. So on the voluntary side, we identified environmental nonprofits. We believe that ecosystem markets can help environmental nonprofits or foundations support their conservation-related missions, in addition to traditional easement or land acquisition programs. And then, as I mentioned before, corporations or social ventures or environmentally responsible companies looking to support a triple bottom line approach to sustainability. On the compliance side, our main buyers would be the polluters. These are the top 10 polluters in New York State, and as you can see, a number of them fall within our project area. We also consider finance to be a prominent buyer and driver on both the voluntary and the compliance side. We've identified 17 entities across the private equity, hedge fund, and investment banking sectors that are eager to price nature's benefits. For one example, the Goldman Sachs Center for Environmental Markets has invested over $32 billion already, $7 million of which has gone directly to foster partnerships with NGOs and nonprofits like NYES, as we all look for partnerships, for market-based solutions to environmental issues. We believe there's real opportunity for ecosystem services and credits to become part of the green finance bubble we're seeing. Legislation on a national or ideally an international level is the most effective driver for these kinds of markets. But with Congress at an impasse, what we're really noticing is that cities and regions across the